Sharen's ambush build is stronger than ever. I'm a day one Sharen player, more hours on her than I'd like to admit, and I've tested everything this tactical stealth queen has to offer. And today I want to share my build with you. So gear up, because this isn't just another cookie cutter build, this is the build to maximize Sharen's potential.
Wait, did we just become best friends? So nice to meet you. I think you're cool.
So Sharen just got a revamp with season 2, including 2 new mods for her ultimate. And because this is all fresh into the game, we're gonna be thorough and go through her kit. And today we're zeroing in on ambush because it's hands down the best option to build around for her. So what makes Sharen stand out? It comes down to 3 key things. She's the only descendant with a cloak. This is priority 1 for any Sharen build. It's the foundation of her tactical playstyle. Okay, number 2. Her ambush perk is one of the strongest abilities in the game. It's high impact, high reward mechanic that can completely shift the tide of a fight when used effectively. Number 3, she's a hybrid powerhouse. Sharen excels as both a weapon platform and a skill damage dealer, with both delivering devastating one-shot kill potential when built right. The fact she is a shooter is a crucial detail a lot of players are missing right now. And that detail is what we are gonna hone in on today. Because if you're using something like the BlueBeetle, for example, you are leaving shit tons of damage on the table. But no worries, we're gonna fix that. If you use the BlueBeetle as Sharen's main weapon, you're not taking advantage of the full benefits that ambush gives you. And the fact that she is getting a buff to her weapons is being disregarded. That's a major issue, and why I suggest you don't use the BlueBeetle as her main weapon on an ambush build. Sure, it offers amazing crit chance after its buff, and I get the appeal, but here's the thing. If you build Sharen correctly, she already has more than enough crit without it. Now here's the real kicker. Sharen is capable of tapping elites. She thrives in close range combat. How close? Close enough to slice enemies with her first skill, a sword strike. So what you need is a weapon that can one-tap enemies at that same range. The BlueBeetle with its fixed scope and long range focus just doesn't cut it. And for long range attacks, Sharen pairs best with the Afterglow sword anyways. It hits super hard. The BlueBeetle is not bad overall, and it's got a use case on Sharen. It's just bad for Sharen's ambush build. I know what you're thinking, but I want to use the BlueBeetle because I just want to spam my skills. Fair enough. Who am I to tell you how to have fun? But here's the thing. While Sharen is unique and hits hard, her tactical playstyle isn't as efficient for clearing content as someone like Keelan, Bunny, or Freyna. Trust me, I hate having to admit that, but it's true. And look, I'm guilty of using Descendants to solo 400% infiltrations just because I like their style, even knowing there's a meta out there that could do it faster. Truthfully, I could give 100 fucks. I'm here not to play AFK mode. I want engaging fights, and Sharen delivers that for me. That said, I get that Sharen isn't for everyone. If you're hooked on Bunny or Freyna, you might find her slower, more deliberate approach, less appealing. But if Bunny and Freyna bore you and you're craving a more tactical, high-skill gameplay experience, Sharen is absolutely worth your time. If you were paying attention to the gameplay that was playing in the background as I was blabbermouthing, you probably noticed that I was invisible 100% of the time. And that is what ambush enables, and the sauce that you need to maximize her damage full time. Let's take a close look. So we're looking at active camouflage, which is the revamped version at its base without the new ambush mod. Activate active camouflage. Attacking an enemy while in this state immediately ends the camouflage and activates ambush. So they've added a movement speed increase at base is 20%, and then there's the ambush perk. This is the most important part of Sharen. So outgoing damage increase is 100%. Now what's important about this and often overlooked is that's all damage. And then they added the crit increases. So for her skills, plus 22%. For her firearm, plus 22%. This isn't gonna show up in her base. Now let's look at her passive. It does change when you put on the ambush mod. So when in ambush state, killing by using a skill resets the active camouflage cooldown. And this is one of the reasons why you don't want to over spec cooldown into her build. You want to get it just right. So this effect gains cooldown, so it itself goes on the cooldown, the ability to reset. So when attacking, increase damage against enemies who are not targeting the caster. So on top of the crit chance boosts that you get, on top of the outgoing damage increase from ambush, you also get a cherry of 15% more outgoing damage. So this modifies so that killing an enemy in active camouflage returns the user to the same state. In active camouflage, agility increases, and shock bomb, which is her number 3 skill, is converted to an attack skill. So one of the reasons why it's also really important is because it's going to give you that cooldown decrease of 30%. That's massive. And you're able to refresh your active camouflage on kill, and so that cooldown decrease is going to help your skills come back lightning fast. So although it says 4 seconds as a cooldown for my sword, 1.9 seconds now. Nuts. This is called frangible rounds. This is 8 seconds, 3.8 seconds now. Notice the damage, which is huge. At base is skill power times 1,009%. Before, it didn't have any damage. The crazy thing is that with ambushed, frangible rounds, her number 3, is actually a 1-tap elite killer. And then it applies electrocution. Her other skill is her cutoff beam. They did make this stronger. And then her final skill is flash short swords. And these were previously her best skill, but I would say now they're not. Her cloaking aside, I think her 1 and her 3 are really balanced now and compete for her best skill. And the thing is, with the short swords, the animation is just too slow. So when you're doing 400% infiltrations, for example, you are just faster with your 1, your 3, and your gun. So you can lock onto 10 enemies, but you can now pierce 1 enemy with all 10, which is pretty darn cool. And then the damage is skill power by 289, which doesn't sound like a lot, but they're pretty devastating. So basically what the devs did is they gave you a timer, an additional timer on the ambush state. So you're able to get that additional damage even though you're not cloaked for a certain period of time. Another detail is that since you're able to refresh your active camouflage while in the camouflage state, that'll put an active camouflage on reserve that you can use to manually refresh your active camouflage. In case you come out of active camouflage, you can quickly re-engage it. Because she's invisible, she's a very hard target and takes minimum damage. So we're only gonna need 1 HP mod. Next, we just need a little bump to her base cooldown. So we're gonna run Nimble Fingers for 25.6% skill cooldown. To go along with skill cooldown, you're gonna want some skill duration as well. So I'm running the basic one for 36.5%. Now that we have that, let's get on her damage. First up, focus on electric. So this is gonna give us a little bit of a cooldown at 6%. And now we wanna roll on crits. And we're gonna take advantage of all of the crit mods. Skill concentration for crit hit damage, skill insight for crit rate, emergency measures for both crit chance and crit hit damage, and front lines for more crit damage and crit chance also. So here's the deal. You want to run all of these because even though some of them give you crit chance, they're the only mods that provide more crit damage. And we're not done with our damage either. So we're going to run Dangerous Ambush. And this is the best mod to pair up with Ambushed. She's going to get some serious damage by being invisible, and she's going to be invisible all the time. So this has a 100% uptime. So it's mostly going to be the first part that you're taking advantage of. So when landing a skill attack while the enemy is not targeting you, skill power plus 25%. And that's the kind of skill damage we need here because her skills are already strong. We're going with shot focus, again, to balance out her weapon, to bring it up because it's formidable. Firearm attack plus 15% and her skill power modifier at a cost of 15%. Again, drop in the bucket. We do not care about that loss. Take a look. We went from 1,365% to 1,349%. Who gives a flying F? That's what her build looks like at its core. For her reactor, you're going to want the tingling mixture. That's electric and fusion. And then the weapons you want to equip with her are going to be a hand cannon and a sniper. And then you can run the scout rifle on it as well because there are Sharen builds that do make sense to have the BlueBeetle in hand. A beam rifle is a good option for her for the Void Vessel. So for the attributes down below, I tested this thoroughly. And ultimately, skill duration and skill cooldown is what I prefer. Look, crit damage is tempting, but the reality is she's one-tapping everything. You just don't really need any more damage. I'll show you the damage numbers, but she doesn't need it. So we're at 62% crit rate. That's before the 22% buff from ambush. And then we're at a 4.3 crit hit damage. If you think she needs more, she really doesn't. Remember, she's gonna get 100% damage buff plus 15% from her passive. She just doesn't need any more damage than this. She's crazy strong, guys. The modifiers are high. I don't know what to tell you. And the same goes for her external components. The Slayer set, again, is also tempting because it gives you the skill power that you're after. 26% of it, too. It does come with the skill cost, which isn't too horrible since her MP is amazing anyways. But you basically would just be running it for the skill power. And again, she doesn't need any more of that. So for more cushion for her ambush state, I decided to run 2 pieces of Annihilation. I decided to run a 2-piece Hunter for the same deal. 4% skill cooldown is not game changer, but it does come in handy. I tested with and without this, and I just preferred to have it, but it's up to you. You do want to make sure you have all of your key stats, so HP, defense, and MP modifiers. So the Perforator is her main. You could probably tell from the gameplay. The Perforator's unique ability is sick. So basically when you hit crits or hit on a weak point, you're gonna spawn explosive scanners. Let's just call those meteors. The amount spawned per crit is gonna be 5. And then when you hit a weak point, you're gonna get 1. When you crit on a weak point, you're gonna get 6. The range is 5 meters and the damage is gonna be your firearm damage by 35%. Now here's what's cool. Ambush is going to give you the crit chance you need and give you an additional 100% damage. So the duration of detect will be 10 seconds. Once you activate with the crit or weak point, you're gonna get an additional weak point damage of 10%, which is gonna help you crush those skulls even easier. Rounds per mag, crit damage, crit chance, and firearm attack. This is my favorite way to run it. This way I'm critting all the time. The damage is gonna pick up from ambush. And then you have rifling reinforcement, electric enhancement, action and reaction. Notice I don't have any RPM on this. I have edging shot to push up her crit chance at a cost of firearm attack. But remember, we got all those buffs hitting her firearm damage. Better concentration for crit damage. Better insight for more crit chance. And then I got reload insight. You could also put more weak point damage here if you wanted to. That's not a bad idea. And then concentration priority for more crit hit damage at the cost of reload. Then I'm using this special mod because it's giving me more crit hit rate at 45% and more crit hit damage at 70%. The cooldown's only 5 seconds, and that's on weak point hit. Hitting weak points in dungeons means headshots, and it's super easy because they don't know you're there. You just basically step up to them, point at their head, pull the trigger. It is so easy to land headshots. It's nuts. You're gonna be activating this all the time, which is why you see me critting all the time. For the Void Vessel, make sure you have the Volsha. Yes, I say Volsha. Some people call it Voltia. And then BlueBeetle as an ultimate backup. For regular dungeons, you want to be running the Afterglow sword. This thing hits super hard and was my main weapon for Sharen prior to the changes in season 2. But this is what it looks like. It's a similar setup, and I run strength and first shot on it, which is gonna give her 200% more damage. And that's one of the reasons why this thing is crazy strong. We already ran through the skill stats. Remember, this is gonna get an increase from ambush state. Now, same thing for the weapons. They're also gonna get a 22% increase. Her main weapon, the Perforator, at base is 35.26%, and then 4x for crit hit damage. And then there's the special mod that also increases its crit chance. If we look at the Afterglow sword, it's at a 90% crit hit rate. And she buffs that when she's cloaked, so that's crazy high. It says when hitting an enemy commander, you get a 22% crit hit rate increase. And that's the only time I'd pull this thing out anyways. So looking at her health stats, she only has 7,000 HP, and I'm fine with that. We're cool. That's enough to solo everything. So here's a detail you don't want to overlook: the buffs from your inversion reinforcement, especially here along the season line. There's one called Arcade Boost. So on hitting 5 or more enemies with the skill, grants skill cooldown of negative 15.5%. And it's going to give you some speed and range increase modifier as well of 11%. Cooldowns every 25 seconds. But also here, when using a skill, you're going to get the quantum domain and increase your range also, as well as skill power up to 15 times. Throw that into the buckets. Next, I want to go into a little more depth on the build options in combination with the BlueBeetle and some other things you have to think through when it comes to mods. And this is that pivotal question. Well, I could just run the BlueBeetle and not have to put skill insight. Well, then the next question is, what are you going to put there instead? And what you're seeing a lot of people choose is to put a fusion on there instead. But pay attention to this closely. This says fusion skill power modifier. That's a 1,364% modifier on the skill already at base. So that modifier is just a drop in the bucket. You're choosing that drop in the bucket over a devastating weapon. Of course, you have spear and shield. That's only 8%, not a game changer. So your options are just really slim from there. Skill simplification is skill power modifier. You can choose power increase. Focus on electric also comes with cooldown. This is an option though, and it does take that battle slot. That's up to you. The amplifications aren't gonna work because they would cost you crits. And then the fusion integration mod is more skill power modifier, again, drop in the bucket. So we can go on and on here, but the point is, from the damage side, there's nothing appealing for that slot. You might be thinking MP. Well, MP is not a problem on Sharen. You do not need MP or cost saving mods on her, because when she is cloaked, you're taking advantage of her MP recovery out of combat capabilities. She doesn't need more cooldown because you're getting that 30% cooldown buff by being invisible almost all the time. She doesn't need any more range because she's got range cap of 150% on her sword, and you wouldn't want to choose that over a powerful weapon anyways. You might be thinking more defense, like more HP, but she's invisible and rarely takes damage. Again, I can go on, but there's really nothing better for Sharen than holding a very powerful weapon that can one-tap enemies. So that puts skill insight as best in slot there. Thank you for hanging out with me. My name is Tuxedo Bandido. That's Tito Bandido.
One and only.
And this was another episode of The First Descendant. If you found this video helpful, subscribe, like, and turn on notifications to ensure you don't miss out on the fantastic experiences waiting for you in The First Descendant. And if you like videos like this, check out the one I have recommended for you right here. If you have anything you want to see covered, be sure to let me know in the comments below. And thank you to all the channel members and donors who make everything possible. Tux Nation wouldn't be without you.
When you buy or download anything for The First Descendant, be sure to use Tux's creator code to support the channel. Easy peasy.
Follow me.